We're waiting 1 minute. Good morning. I would like to welcome you all to the online conference dedicated to competition on cloud computing and other disruptive technologies, What's on the Horizon, organized by the Autorité de la Concurrence. We have the immense honor to welcome Commissioner Reiko Aoki from the Japan Fair Trade Commission, which published its report on trade practices in cloud services sector on the 28th of June, 2022. We also welcome Chair Martin Snoep from the Netherlands Authority for Consumers and Markets, which published a market study into cloud services on the 5th of September 2022. Finally, President Benoît Cœuré will represent the Autorité de la Concurrence, whose market study on the competition in the cloud sector was published on the 29th of June 2023. Today's event will be divided in two sessions. A first session will be dedicated to a discussion between Commissioner Aoki, Chair Snoep, and President Cœuré for approximately 50 minutes. This session will be followed by a Q&A session with the French investigation team who worked on the 2023 market study on competition in the cloud sector, and this session will last approximately 30 minutes. We have received several questions from the audience already. You will still be able to send additional questions during the events at the following address at echellecloud@autoritédelaconcurrence.fr. The conference is live streamed and the link to the video will also be posted on our website if some of the audience wants to watch it afterwards. Now let's turn to our distinguished participants. Can each of you summarize your market studies for the audience, focusing on the reason why your respective authority decided to investigate the cloud computing sector? And also let us know what's, in your view, the most pressing challenges posed by the emergence of cloud services. Commissioner Aoki, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Lodi, for the introduction, and it's a great honor to be able to participate in this very important event. And I appreciate the opportunity to share the Japanese report. And I would like to share the slides with you. Can you see the slides now?
Yes, we can.
Okay.
Thank you.
Let me just start the slideshow. Okay. As Lodi mentioned, we published our cloud computing services report on trade practices in cloud service sector in June 2022. As digitalization of economy has advanced in recent years, the use of cloud service is expanding as one of the solutions to business needs. The information system, which now form the foundation of business activities, providing prompt and flexible support for rapidly changing frontline workforce. In case of Japan, this means aging population and also declining workforce. Some cloud service providers, and as shown in the slides as CSPs, are becoming important players who provide the foundational business activities to a number of enterprises by providing a wide range of services. In such an environment, the JFT decided to conduct a market study regarding trade practices in cloud services sector to identify the trade practices and competitive conditions in the sector in order to prevent acts that violate the Anti-Monopoly Act, or the AMA, thereby demonstrating to parties in the sector JFTC's views and concerns regarding the AMA and competition policy to ensure a fair and free competition. Though the cloud services are classified into three general groups, IaaS, PaaS, and SaaS, this market study mainly targeted IaaS and PaaS, focusing on the roles of the cloud service as a foundation or a component in the digital market. The cloud service market, including SaaS, was nearly 3 million yen nearly 3 million in 2020, but is expected to continue to expand. However, only 10 to 20% of the respondents of our questionnaire have introduced the multi-cloud, which uses combination of cloud services provided by different providers. The degree of market competition in the IaaS and PaaS markets is increasing every year. The blue, you can see the blue total of the top three with the largest share expanding, especially AWS, Microsoft, and Google are expanding their market share significantly. Their total shares are indicated in red, and you can see that they've expanded faster than how the market is expanding. And this trend is expected to continue in the future due to certain market characteristics, such as competitiveness based on economies of scale, by reducing the costs of provision. Number two, competitiveness based on economies of scope, with advantages of generating synergy among businesses. And three, competitiveness based on a wide range of provided services. And four, indirect network effects due to an increase in related business operators, such as support and provision of engineers experienced in technologies related to a particular cloud service. And five, tendency of customers to give priority to services of providers they already use when they expand their use of cloud services. And based on these market characteristics, the degree of market concentration is likely to continue to increase among the three largest providers. For service switching issue, based on our customers' questionnaire, we found that the little switching from cloud services to on-premises would occur under a hypothetical price increase of 5 to 10%, while a majority of the respondents have experienced switching from an on-premises service to a cloud service. Plus, under a hypothetical price increase of 5 to 10%, there would also be little switching to other providers of services. Based on these findings, the market may change into a non-competitive structure in the near future. Then there will be concern about negative effects, such as increased costs, stagnation of quality improvement of cloud services, and so on. Plus, based on customers' questionnaire, we also found that there's asymmetry of information between providers and customers. It may become difficult for customers to select services properly in the near future. To prevent negative effects of concentration of market shares, our basic views are that, one, the contractual, technical, and economic constraints that customers face when switching should be reduced as much as possible in ways such that customers could be able to switch to other cloud services or port their own premises option if they wish. Two, interoperability of services between different providers should be ensured, and customers should be able to use IT services and software from different providers in a single system environment, regardless of whether it is cloud or on-premises. Plus, to prevent asymmetry of information and ensure fairness and transparency, our basic views are that It is especially important that appropriate information is provided to customers before they start using the cloud service, so that customers can voluntarily and rationally select services that are necessary for them. And two, in order not to prevent customers from combining or expanding services, it is necessary that appropriate information on the contents of the services be provided, and even after the conclusion of the contract. And it is desirable that a system will be established to appropriately accept consultation and negotiation from customers. In the market study, especially through communication with both providers and customers, we identified providers' certain conducts that may restrain competition and categorize them into 9 patterns. I would like to share with you 3 of those patterns. The first pattern is setting a data transfer fee or egress fee. The providers sometimes set the data transfer fee for using IaaS, free for input, but expensive for output. In such circumstance, setting an unfairly high data transfer fee may be by a provider influential in the cloud service market shall be a problem under the AMA if it causes foreclosure. The second pattern is integration of different functions. Providers sometimes integrate additional functions which have been separately sold in the market into its cloud service. And you can see in the figure there how cloud provider Alpha is going to bundle function A and B together in order to foreclose CSP provider Beta on the right-hand side. The third pattern is self-preferential treatment in the licensing of software used in cloud services. When offering specific software to customers, some providers may set a higher license fee or differentiated support conditions when the customers use the software on other providers' cloud service compared to when the customers use the software on their own cloud service. A provider's preferential treatment of its IaaS in the licensing of software may have an effect to interfere with transactions between the competitors of the provider and the customers in the market for IaaS. In addition to what I mentioned, the report details other harms such as preferential treatment for exclusive partners and party clauses on sellers in the marketplace, and so forth. You can find the complete list in the report, and I understand the slides will be made available after this conference. Thank you. And now I'll stop the sharing.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Aoki, for this very comprehensive presentation, and thank you for allowing us to make those slides available. I think it's going to be very helpful. Chair Snoop, can you let us know a little bit more about the ACM's market study?
Yeah, well, thank you very much, and thank you for organizing this this very important event on a topic that is extremely important. And I think if I can speak for my French colleague, that this conference shows how well competition authorities also around the world look at similar issues, very similar issues, and also can build on each other's work and come up with a comprehensive view on actually the issues in the market. And I think our teams have worked fantastically with the teams of the authorities in Japan and France and exchanged ideas and knowledge. And you see that during the course of the time, this enriches all our work. So I will keep this relatively brief because Commissioner Aoki basically, said also, the Japanese authorities found similar things that we found, but just give you a little bit of background on why we investigated this market, what we found, and what's next from our perspective. And I think that I will focus a bit more on the institutional perspective. I mean, the reason why we investigated this market is how Commissioner Aoki so eloquently pointed out. This is a foundational market. It's an extremely important market for the entire economy that is growing in importance. It's a crucial market in the heart of our new digital economy. And at the same time, the market is characterized by huge economies of scale and scope, which are also important for the development of the market on the one hand, but pose a danger for competition in the market on the other hand. I mean, this is the dilemma competition authorities around the world are facing all the time. And third element, which is important in this market, is that there is a high level of vertical integration, which again, on the one hand, leads to efficiencies, but on the other hand, amplifies the risk for competition issues in the market. So what we found in our market is that there seems to be, and I'm presenting this a little carefully, but there seems to be a sufficient upfront level of competition, in the sense that when a company decides to add additional contracts for cloud services, or for the first time moves part of its server needs from in-house to outsource it to one of the big cloud services companies, there seems to be a sufficient level of competition in the market. At least it's our market study. What we got back was that also companies feel that they face a sufficient level of competition. The problem is in the next steps, because what we also heard in our market study and also found in real life is that there are significant barriers to switch. Those are technical barriers, organizational barriers, financial barriers, and that makes creates the risk of a significant vendor lock-in. There are two sides of it. It's on the one hand, very practical, technical, organizational, or financial issues, but at the same time, there's also more, I would say, an information asymmetry, in the sense that companies, before they decide to switch part of their or their entire capacity to a different cloud service provider, it's a very unpredictable situation, and there is little upfront certainty on what is going to happen, what the eventual price is going to be, and the market, in a sense, is not very transparent, and that makes it very difficult for companies in such a crucial process within their companies to make a fully informed decision. And that lack of transparency, in our view, harms competition, because as also the Japanese authorities have shown, is that price incentives have only a limited effect on switching. And I can imagine, I just imagine myself as being the CIO or the CEO of a big company, and faced with do we need to go to a different cloud provider, not getting a definitive answer that it will be absolutely no harm to the production processes, not entirely sure what the costs are going to be short run and long run, that the incentive would be, let's not take a risk and stay with the same company. And that is the vendor lock-in. So the vendor lock-in is not only purely technical, organizational, financial reasons, but I think the more, I would say, irrational or information asymmetry or other softer elements play an important role in the barriers to switch. We do see in the market and multi-cloud solutions, but so companies contracting various cloud providers, but the majority of those cloud solutions are really separate services from the company's perspective. So that means that, for one type of service or for one type of application, they go to one cloud provider, and for a completely different other, they go to another. There is not necessarily a need for those two services to interconnect. And that's also the reason, and then I come to my third point, what's next? And just one step before, what did we found? Problems, potential vendor lock-in, high barriers to switch, and with serious competition risks for price, quality, and innovation, the normal parameters of competition. So for us, what's next was really the focus on portability, data portability, and interoperability, because we believe that is going to help to shape the market and create competitive conditions in the market. And of course, there are two ways to do this. One is, I would say, ex post competition law enforcement, and the other one would be a regulatory solution, ex ante regulatory solution. So that's one element how we looked at it, and then the second element how we looked at it is that whether it makes sense for a national authority from a small country like the Netherlands, whether it makes sense to try to solve this issue at the national level. And I think to start with the latter, we decided it's not doable to solve this at the national level. So we decided, that our market study would add to an international debate, and that we would continue in supporting a solution at the European level, and that would be more efficient spending of resources, particularly because as a result of the Japanese and the French market studies as well, there seems to be consensus that there is something going on, and that something needs to be done to prevent worse things from happening. So we are very much in favor of a European approach, possibly even a global approach. And then the question is it ex post competition enforcement or ex ante regulatory enforcement? And there, I think we gave priority to an ex ante regulatory approach. And that's why we are very happy that the European Data Act now provides for a solid mechanism. It needs to be tried and tested, but it provides for a solid mechanism to improve portability and interoperability. And I'm sure it needs to be fine-tuned, and we need to learn and experience and work with it to make it actually work in practice. But at least there is now a regulatory foundation. That is to say, there is political agreement on the Data Act, I understand, but of course the Data Act is not yet adopted. So, but I assume for the moment that it will be adopted, and that will also give the, most likely, not entirely sure yet, our authority the tools to intervene on a regulatory basis in this market on the basis of the work that we and the Japanese and the French authorities have done. So it's an important market, and with serious risks, and at the same time we are hopeful that a proper regulatory solution will enable us, I think authorities around the world, and in particular authorities in Europe, to deal with the situation and to promote and foster competition in the cloud services market.
Thank you very much, Chair Snoep. President Queré, can you give us your perspective?
Thank you, Elodie. And first of all, let me thank very warmly Reiko and Martijn for joining this conversation about the cloud and other disruptive technologies. It's only natural that we intervene on the same panel, given that our teams have extensively looked into the issues, and they've extensively discussed with each other, which speaks to the importance of international cooperation, as was said by Martijn already. And before jumping into the substance, it's already very it warms my heart to hear that there is a lot of commonality and convergence in the way we look at the market and in the solutions that we can envisage. So that's what you see today is international cooperation at work, and that's really nice to see. So when it comes to the work undertaken at the Autorité de la Concurrence, it started 18 months ago when I joined the Autorité de la Concurrence. A few days, only a couple of days after my appointment, I decided to launch a market study into cloud services. And there were several reasons for that. First reason is that in France, the cloud sector is expected to reach 27 billion euros by 2025, with an average annual growth rate of nearly 15%, 14% exactly. It is a strategic sector. It is a growing sector with a very broad significance for productivity in our economy, but also for national security, strategic autonomy. It is also it supports artificial intelligence, which is also a fastly developing market, which we can discuss later in the discussion. And in the case of France, we've seen the use of cloud services in France lagging behind as compared to the rest of Europe, with only 29% of companies of all sizes having adopted the cloud, as opposed to 41% on average in Europe. And when you look at the difference, it really comes from small and medium-sized companies and very small businesses migrating more slowly in France than elsewhere in Europe. So that is a concern for public policy, and it's also a significant fact in terms of competition, because it shows that first adoption of cloud services will be really important in the months and years to come, and we have to be particularly careful of possible lock-in, which is part of our discussion. To summarize really in a few words what we found in our market study, and as Elodie said earlier, the next session will be a technical one with the case handlers, and so there will be opportunity to answer all kind of technical questions. I'm not going into that, but just to share with you the main highlights. There are 3 takeaways. And everything I'm going to say from now echoes very much what has been said by both Reiko and Martijn. So there will be a lot of commonality here, even though the markets are different. So first takeaway, first keyword, concentration. The French market is very concentrated around the 3 major players, and it keeps concentrating. And so there is looking forward, there is a risk that it keeps that concentration keeps increasing. In 2021, AWS captured almost half of IaaS and PaaS revenues in France, with Azure amounting to around 17%. And the third player is Google, with a market share of about 8%. So you see how powerful these 3 players combined are on the French market. And the likelihood of a new player being able to step into the market and rapidly gain market shares appears to be limited. So there is concern. That's a market where there is potential concern about both competition on the market and competition for the market. And indeed, the hyperscalers benefit from a number of competitive advantages. They have deep pockets, considerable financial resources that enable them to make substantial investments in data centers, in IT infrastructures, etc. They can benefit from economies of scale, or also from economies of scope in terms of products and services offered in their ecosystems. And they have access to a pre-existing customer base that enable them to take advantage of significant network effects. So there is a potential concern related to the continuing and even increasing market power of these players. All the more so in the French case, as I said, we are at a critical juncture where lots of companies still haven't yet migrated to the cloud. And so the initial choice of a cloud provider is a critical moment for customers. And that's why this report is, in our view, was particularly timely when it comes to the French market. That's the first takeaway. Second takeaway is about the methodological framework that we provide in the report. And again, the next session will be an opportunity to delve more into that. We provide a methodological framework to approach possible relevant markets in the cloud sector. We look into possible relevant markets based on cloud services. We find that the best way to formulate customer requirements for cloud services is in terms of workloads, which corresponds to all IT resources or business processes meeting a specific customer need. And so we see the discussion on relevant markets shaping up around workloads rather than industries or sectors. We don't see industry-specific requirements as the basis for market definitions, with one possible exception in the French case, which is what we call sovereign cloud, that is specific requirements set up by the government to protect against non-EU regulation. And that possible segmentation could, based on the sovereign cloud or trusted cloud certification, could be the basis for a specific market definition. And finally, we see software markets as potentially being considered as related markets that could be taken into account for competitive analysis in the cloud sector. Different technology layers are characterized by strong interoperability links, making all these markets related to each other. And so a company in a dominant position in one of these markets could use its market power to exclude competitors from other markets, in particular from cloud markets. So it seems that these markets, software markets, must be subject to particular vigilance on the part of competition authorities. And as you know, there are several complaints with the European Commission related to the link between software markets and cloud markets. And finally, and that's my last point, we identify a number of competitive risks. So we outline risk scenarios, where there could be risks to competition. Some of them are cross-cutting or transversal. For instance, we see an imbalance in the relationship between customers and hyperscalers that has been described by Reiko already. I'm not coming back into that, which could make it difficult for customers to negotiate contracts and clauses or renegotiate contracts. We also see cloud credits and egress fees as a matter of particular attention. I'm not expanding now on cloud credits. We can come back to it later in the discussion. But egress fees have been mentioned already, and they are at the heart of the Data Act, as we know, and they are potentially disconnected from the costs that are directly incurred by suppliers when it comes to data transfers. We could see that egress fees are a major concern for the industry in terms of the raising possible barriers to switching between cloud environments, to building multi-cloud environments, and also to anticipate future needs when it comes to data traffic and to the use of bandwidth. So these are the main risks, and then we lay out scenarios. For instance, so very practical scenarios of companies being faced with choices, decisions related to their cloud environment. One scenario relates to the situation of customers when they first transition from on-premise IT to cloud services. A second scenario relates to a customer wanting to migrate from one cloud provider to another. And the third scenario relates to the barriers for the expansion of smaller cloud providers as a competitors to hyperscalers. And we outline possible risks or frictions that we see under each scenario. So that's all in the report. What next? What next? First, as Martijn said, we believe that that competition authorities are well equipped to deal with competitive risks in the cloud sector. We have significant case law to rely on, both at European level and also at the French level, including on interoperability or on sharing degraded information or discriminatory information. So here there is case law that we can use, and there are also procedural tools that we can use, including interim measures, which here in France we've used extensively, and as recently as just before the summer against Meta. But on the other hand, and that also has been said by Martijn, we see market failures that probably are better addressed by regulation, and that relates particularly to interoperability and functional equivalence, where self-regulation has been tried, and so far it has failed to produce common technical standards in the industry. So a regulatory approach is warranted. A lot of it is in the Data Act that is now politically agreed, but yet to be voted and implemented. Some of it might be also in the DMA, although it remains to be specified how the DMA could apply to cloud services in more detail. But certainly, I would welcome the European Commission clarifying how the DMA will apply to cloud services to give clarity to the industry. And if the European Commission finds that the DMA can effectively address some of the failures that we're discussing today, then the Commission should act swiftly to include cloud services in the list of core platform services. And it's an if, and I leave it to the Commission to assess and decide. But if so, they should act swiftly rather than slowly. And finally, there can be also scope for regulation at a national level. So the French government has proposed a law enforcing interoperability, limiting the use of cloud credits, and suppressing egress fees. We've welcomed this initiative insofar as it is consistent with European law, which eventually will prevail. So you can see it as an anticipation and organizing a smooth transition towards the Data Act, which is very welcome. So I think I can stop here, but here really I think the key word today is commonality and shared concerns and to a large extent shared solutions.
Thank you very much, President Querret. While you were talking, I've had a lot of questions from the audience, and the main theme on the questions are about the actions that the competition authorities can take as a result of the market studies. Basically, they say you have common views and you have all issued reports. Now, what's next? I know that it's been alluded to by Chair Snoop and President Querret, but I think they want to have some more information on whether there are plans either at the European level, which I'm not sure that we can answer, but or at the national competition authorities level, whether there will be any follow-up work, including case investigations. So maybe Commissioner Aoki.
Thank you. Sorry, I misplaced my mouse. Thank you again to Toite and President Querret for assembling this, initiating this conversation. As you said, it's great to share the commonality and also different things that the authorities are trying, particularly for Japan, because JFTC at this moment, we don't have any plans to take any specific action. But we have publicized the study widely, and it has called attention to both customers and providers what issues that they should be careful about. It's actually very important for startups as well. So we want to promote their growth, and we certainly don't want them to be tripped up by making mistakes in terms of AMA, Anti-Monopoly Act. And they are, in fact, making small changes, voluntary efforts, after reading the report and realizing what can be problematic. Customers are a lot more careful about understanding what their contracts are telling them they're obliged to do and what they cannot do, and making taking action to make sure that they won't be locked in or locked in as little as possible.
Thank you very much. Chair Snoop, do you want to add something from your previous statement?
Yes, maybe quickly to reiterate that our authority will first await the implementation of the Data Act and see to it that compliance with the Data Act is sufficiently ensured. So that I think this is our first priority. But with our competition law tools, we will stay. We will continue to guard the market. So it's kind of a two-pronged approach. On the one hand, a preference for a regulatory tool, but at the same time, if it will take a while before full compliance with the Data Act is ensured, we will not hesitate to use our competition law tool. So it's really a twofold approach with a preference over a regulatory tool rather than an ex post competition law tool.
Thank you very much, President Queret.
Yeah, I mean, as we've all said, I mean, there can be different procedural avenues which are non-mutually exclusive. So, for instance, some of the issues that have been highlighted with contracts, like lack of transparency in contracts or asymmetry in the bargaining power, these could be also addressed through litigation under contract law, or consumer protection also can be an avenue. So we can be. I think we should be broad in considering different procedural avenues, and different authorities would then be involved. When it comes to competition enforcement, antitrust enforcement, our general prosecutor, the Rapporteur General, has made it clear when we released the cloud report that his investigation units will carry out a preliminary examination of the elements gathered in the market study in order to decide whether it is warranted and necessary to open litigation investigation. So it's a separate. I mean, the market study is a market study, but on this basis, it provides an analytical framework which the case teams can use to open possible cases. Last week, the investigation services of the Autorité carried out a dawn raid at the premises of a company suspected of having implemented anti-competitive practices in the graphics cards sector. I'm not giving names here, so it's a company in the graphics card sector, and we know that graphic cards are particularly relevant to process large amounts of information at the same time, and very relevant in the cloud sector. So that's one first consequence, let's say, and so the investigation teams have acted very quickly, and they are now considering other possible actions. And of course, I can't say more about that.
Thank you very much. I'm conscious on time, so maybe I'll jump to another question from the audience about the link between cloud and artificial intelligence. So there has been a lot of focus on artificial intelligence lately, especially in Europe and in the US. The European Commission's proposal for an AI Act is currently being discussed with potentially strict requirements for generative AI systems. The CMA just issued its initial review on AI foundation models. This is also an area of particular interest to the US FTC. So I was wondering whether Chair Snoop and President Curé, what do you think should be the role of national competition authorities in Europe with respect to industries that are developing very quickly, such as AI? And what is your view on how the use of AI will affect competition among cloud providers and beyond today and into the future? Perhaps Chair Snoop?
Yes, thank you very much. I think we are in an infancy stage, in the sense that I think now where the market is, there can be a tendency to overregulate the market. And I think here, at least it's how we see it, also the role of the competition authority is also to kind of to look at the bright side of artificial intelligence, and also to see that it also provides opportunities for companies, opportunities to improve market dynamics, opportunities for new entrants and new business models. So that I think we see our role as in this emerging market, with, there is no doubt, and I do not want to dilute that there are risks, sufficiently risks, but I think how we see it is that there is a lot of emphasis on the risks at the moment, and not so much on the opportunities. So how we see our role is also to look at the opportunities and make sure that businesses can grasp those opportunities. So that's why we do think it is important that there is some sort of oversight over these markets, but because no one can predict exactly how this is going to develop, it's a far less. I mean, we discuss it. The cloud services markets are not mature markets yet, but this is even less mature. And I think we have to be careful not to overly and regulate the market at this stage. And there is reason for that fear, because I think in some instances, probably rightly so, there is a feeling among legislators that we were too late in regulating big tech, if I can use this kind of as a shorthand for the platform economy, and that now we should be earlier in the game. But that's also a threat. And it's also a threat that we kill the market and kill the opportunities in that market before they come to fruition. And also a threat and a risk for Europe that it will be put at a disadvantage as compared to the rest of the world. So a careful, balanced approach is something that we advocate at this stage.
Thank you very much, President Curé.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly very early days and too early to pass a judgment on whether AI is good or bad for competition and that kind of things. It's just too early. But I think we have to send clear signals to the market that some practices will be watched very will be under scrutiny. And also there has to be a clear message to policymakers generally that competition is a dimension that has to be taken on board when building the future regulatory framework around AI. There are many dimensions to it. AI raises ethical issues, it raises privacy issues, it raises security issues, and so on. And we want to be sure that competition is not lost when the regulatory framework is being built, because we do see issues, and we do see potential risks related to the footprint of hyperscalers or big tech companies more generally in the AI universe. AI is about building models and then training models and then retraining or upgrading models and then about customizing models when they are being distributed to customers. And through all these stages, economies of scales and scope will be at play. So hyperscalers can avail of data storage capacity, the data computing capacity, and they can possibly tie AI services with other services, including either cloud services or software. So this potential for reinforcing market power and the potential for creating new ways to tie and to leverage, that's something that we will watch very carefully. There is not much more I can tell you at this stage.
Thank you very much. Perhaps a last question. So we're going to go over just a little bit, but just to have your priorities in the future with respect to the digital sector. I know, so we have the cloud, and maybe are you intending to open new market studies, or can you let us know, maybe Commissioner Aoki?
We don't have any new market studies planned on the horizon, but we are moving to ex-ante regulation with mobile OS. Based on our study, we're now heavily involved in writing a new law to regulate the OS system. We decided that was OS. This is mobile system is very important, and it's a well-defined market that we know quite a lot about. That will be, and we'll be focusing on advocacy and enforcement as we have in recent years, and quite successful. Thank you.
Thank you very much. President Snoep?
Yes, this year we focused primarily on preparing for our new tasks under the Digital Services Act, under the Data Governance Act, and are already in preparation for the Data Act. So that has a lot of organizational issues, and we got extra budget. We set up new teams, set up procedures to deal with these three different important acts. We are also actively helping the Commission with the DMA enforcement. We now have 2 people at the European Commission working in the joint investigative teams with the Commission on compliance with the DMA. So an important aspect of our kind of digital enforcement strategy is supporting the Commission in its efforts to ensure compliance with the DMA as soon as the rules kick in. And we are now in the process. That's what we do. We have an annual kind of work plan scenario. So now we're thinking about what is the enforcement strategy, both in regulation and in competition for the next year. So that could well result into the announcement of new market studies. But it's too early to tell at this stage, unfortunately. We'll make this public at the beginning of next year. But that could, I mean, the digital sector at large is going to be a prime focus of the Authority for Consumers and Markets.
Thank you very much. President Querrey?
So as you know, digital is one of our top priorities, together with sustainability and with fighting inflation. We will be advancing our enforcement activity when it comes to well-known cases such as the app tracking transparency case, where a statement of objection has been issued. So we are in the dialogue phase with the companies, and the case is not yet decided on. We also are very, very carefully following the implementation of the commitment decisions that we've taken last year with respect to Meta in the edtech sector and with respect to Google on publishing rights. And as we've repeatedly said, if we find that the commitments are not being properly enforced, we can revert back to the to sanctions. We are discussing with our counterpart in Europe and with the Commission to transition in a smooth way to the DMA. So we are waiting for the French Parliament to vote on the empowering law that will give us authority to investigate for the DMA, and I'm hopeful that the law will be voted before the end of the year. And finally, I think what we are all together here to do this morning is to scan the horizon and to anticipate future challenges or future opportunities for competition. That is what we are doing today in this seminar. International cooperation is absolutely crucial. It is, of course, very tight at the European level, but we also see a lot of cooperation at the international level, in the ICN, at the OECD, and also in the G7. So I'm very much looking forward to discussing all these issues at the G7 enforcers meeting under the leadership of the JFTC in November in Tokyo.
Thank you very much. I think that concludes our session. So Commissioner Aoki, Chair Snoop, and President Curry, thank you. And we will now enter our second session with the French investigation team. Please bear with us as we let them in. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Should be better now. So I'll start again, and bear with us as we test our mic together as we transition for an amazing first panel to the more ground-to-earth second panel. I'm Jan Gutman, the head of the Digital Economy Unit at the French Competition Authority, and I'm joined today with half of a crew that works on the cloud market study. I let them introduce themselves, and after that, we'll go straight to the question from the audience. You can still ask questions to the email address at echelle@autoritédelaconcurrence.fr. You can also find the email address on our website. Please now, Elodie, can you introduce yourself?
Hello, I'm Elodie Van den End. I'm a deputy head of the Digital Economy Unit. I was a case handler for the cloud computing opinion of the French Autorité de la Concurrence.
Yeah. Nicolas?
Hello, I'm Nicolas Luc. I've been an economist for 4 years now, more than 4 years now at the French Competition Authority. And I worked with the case, with the team on this case, on this market study since the beginning, in particular on the subject of egress fees.
Thanks. Morgane?
Yes, hello everyone. So I'm Morgane Cure. I'm an economist in the chief economist team at the Autorité de la Concurrence for a bit more than 1 year now. So I have been working on the economic aspects of the cloud market study, and mainly on the part dedicated to cloud credit.
Thank you. And last but not least, Adrien.
Hi everyone, I'm Adrien Frumens. I'm case handler and data scientist within the Jan and Elodie unit, the Digital Economy Unit, and I work mainly on the technical aspect within the cloud inquiry.
Thank you all. And let's start this panel with one very practical question. Can you let us know how you handle the investigation of the cloud sector with respect to human resources and technical means, and what each one of you bring to the team, because it was the first time that the authority set up a team that consists of lawyers, economists, and data scientists. Maybe to start with Elodie?
Thank you. Yes, I think it was the first time that on its advisory capacity, the authority decided to pool such a big team of case handler together. I think it was required probably by the technicality of the sector. So we were a team of 8 people were involved in the drafting of the opinion. So as Jan said, you had lawyers, economists, and data scientists who participated in various levels. I think it was very helpful for as a case handler having a legal background to have the view of economists, especially when it came to cloud credits and egress fees. I think it was also very helpful to have the data scientist with us when it came to issues such as portability and interoperability, because we decided to go deep in the technicalities on how does that work, what kind of documentation do you need, and so I think it was I think that's what made our opinion probably pretty comprehensive.
Nicolas, of the economist team.
Yes, so from the economist point of view, we identified some economical issues. So you mentioned already the credit cloud and the egress fees. By interviewing the market stakeholders, customers, suppliers, and also by going through the investigation already conducted by the other authorities, such as the CMA that has published intermediary reports, the DOJ, or the Japanese authority, and also the authority from Netherlands.
And Adrian, for the data scientist part.
Thank you for that question, Jan. So from a technical point of view, we handled the investigation by understanding the cloud computing models, the different layers, IaaS, PaaS, SaaS, the type of services offered by the industry, and also the technical barriers and challenges that can occur in the cloud sector. So another interesting point is that we all shared our knowledge with the rest of the team by organizing transversal presentation on specific aspects, so legal, economic, and data aspect. And finally, we also helped to design the questionnaires and to analyze the answers.
Thank you, Adrian. To rebound on some of what was said during the first panel, our president, but also Chair Snoop and Commissario Aki talked a lot about cooperation between authorities. But in practice, how did you cooperate with other national competition authority or with the Commission during your investigation? How did you make sure that you didn't step on one to each other? Maybe Elodie to begin an answer?
Yes, so when we started our investigation, we knew that some other national competition authorities were actually already investigating the sector. So I think it was very helpful to us to be able to share their initial thoughts, what they were focusing on, and trying to have a continuous dialogue about how our findings and what we wanted to do at the end. So we had so it was the case with national competition authorities, but also the European Commission, because that's the role of the ECN as well, to share perspectives and see. And we were also conscious of the fact that there were already complaints before the European Commission. But so we had a dialogue with the European Commission and the Japan, of course, and the Dutch Competition Authority, but we also exchanged views with the US FTC and the UK's Office of Communication, who, as you know, published an interim report in April. And we also talked to the Bundeskartellamt and the CMA. So basically, we had a pretty comprehensive view of who was doing what, and so exchange of views, phone calls about where we were standing, and I think that's what make our reports comprehensive and also complementary.
Thank you, Elodie. Now let's delve into more technical questions. We got one regarding egress fees. So it should be for you, Nicolas. They say that regulation should very soon ban transfer fees and especially egress fees. But wouldn't it be legitimate to charge bandwidth with cost to condition regarding egress fees?
Yes, thank you, Jan, for the question. Yeah, it is right. It seems that egress fees should gradually disappear due to the future regulations. First in France with the law on digital space, then in Europe with the implementation of the Data Act. And it's also true that our market study concluded that egress fees seem disconnected from the cost directly incurred for during data transfers. But I think that another important point of the document on this subject of egress fees does not concern so much the level or the existence of these fees, which at the end, I totally agree, allow to recover huge costs and huge investments in the networks, but how suppliers charge these fees to their customers. And that is what the market study allowed us to understand. The major concern today raised was the pricing structure of the egress fees, which is proportional to the volume of gigabytes transferred each month or each year, because it's particularly difficult, if not impossible, for the clients to anticipate a future need for gigabytes transfer, especially if your business model is very data consuming or if you're trying to set up a multi-cloud architecture, for example. So those customers in those cases cannot anticipate the fees they will be charged because there is a problem of transparency. It's a problem of information asymmetry. And during the investigation, clients have explained to us that today they intentionally design their IT infrastructure in a way to limit for the future this unpredictable cost of data as much as possible, even if today they don't think so much about multi-cloud. So I think there is indeed a risk of foreclosure, especially for the future, because we are in a growing market still concerning the first generations of migrations to the cloud. But yeah, that was the concern for the authority, which recommended in the documents that, of course, network costs can be covered, but they have to be covered in a transparent and predictable way.
Thank you, Nicolas. We also received questions regarding cloud credits, and President Curé mentioned it in his intervention, but didn't have time to expand on the question of cloud credit. But now we have time. So a question for Morgane. First question, what's the difference between cloud credits and free trial? Because we observe free trials and allow it in a lot of other industry. And what are your final recommendations regarding cloud credits?
Yeah, so I would say that firstly, in their form, credits are not free trial as such, but sums to be spent in the form of an invoice credit granted before the use. So this being said, they operate very similarly to free trials, and actually many suppliers offer both on the cloud sector. So the question is more about why we believe that credit can raise problems, whereas free trials do not. So in the market study, we distinguish between two forms of credits. So we mainly warn about the use of credits in the form of support programs. So these programs are the one which concerns many players with high added value and very large amount of credits for a huge period of use. On the other hand, we identify a second form of short-term credits, which we consider to be totally equivalent to free trials and which, in our view, do not raise any competitive issues and then should be authorized in the same way as cloud credits. So from our point of view, it's more a question of amount and duration than of the form taken by the offer. So if free trials had same characteristics with durations of several years in industry with high switching costs, the conclusion would be the same and we would warn it. So in terms of perspectives for the credits, unlike data transfer fees, there are no plans to regulate cloud credits specifically at the European level. But in a particular article of a draft law in France to secure and regulate the digital space, the government proposed a framework for their duration and their renewal conditions. So in so doing, the government wants to ensure the proposed programs do not preempt and lock in the market and then can be replicated by small providers. So in the end, the authority recommends that as part of the assessment of the future regulation, an impact study be carried out on cloud credits, in particular, of course, on those falling into the category of support programs. So in order to assess their impact and to compare their possible effect on competition with the advantages derived by the companies by benefiting from the credits, especially the startups.
Thank you, Morgan. We received a question in French, so bear with me as I try to translate it in live. So it says that the cloud market suffer from absence of definition of relevant market. And so it says that it's very hard to tackle anti-competitive practices because the relevant market are not defined. And so you cannot assess dominant position. How could you go around this limitation regarding relevant markets to have an effective enforcement? That's the spirit of the question. Elodie, if you have some thought about that.
Yes, I mean, I think what we said in our opinion is that we feel that we have the adequate tools, legal tools and technical tools to be able to deal with the issues coming up from the cloud sector. So as President Curry said, we think we have a sufficient case law and we have all those tools that we have with respect to commitments and interim measures that allow us to act quickly. So, and I don't think, I mean, market definition is an issue, but it's true that it has been said that competition law may, take more time than ex-ante regulation. Obviously, I think that was the goal of regulators when they decided to initiate ex-ante regulation, because they thought that it would be helpful to increase contestability and fairness in the sector. So that was the goal for the DMA. You have the Data Act as well now, who will provide new rules to allow customers to switch between various cloud providers. It will also promote the development of interoperability standards, and the rules aim to promote competition and choice in the market and prevent vendors lock-in. And as President Curry also said, you also have a law at the French level that's called the Draft Law to Secure and Regulate the Digital Space, whose goal is to adapt French law to the European regulations, such as the DMA, and to anticipate certain provisions from the Data Act. And so I don't think we should oppose necessarily competition law and regulation. I think one goes with one another, and we will see in the future whether competition law cases are required in the sector.
Yeah, as you mentioned, there's a lot of regulation laws applying or in the process of drafting in this sector. And so I suppose it was not easy during your investigation to be able to take into account all this legislation, because a lot of them was still evolving during your investigation, and is still evolving now as we spoke about the French draft bill. We received questions regarding our assessment of the DMA. It says that if for the gatekeeper, if cloud services are designated as cloud platform services, what could be the most impactful obligation as applied to the cloud services? So if you would like to try and answer, Elodie.
I think that would be a question for the European Commission, really. I mean, you potentially have a lot of you can already have, I think, obligations and prohibition that can still apply to cloud-related services, even though they have not been designated as a core platform services. So I don't really have an answer on that. I think we will see. We will see how it goes. Basically, right now, you have the designation of gatekeepers and core platform services that just happened by the Commission, and the first obligation that will be able to that will enter into force next March, so 2024. So I think we will see as well next year how those obligations play out, if I may say so, and see how exactly they are going to be applied by the European Commission, but I can't really say which one in particular.
Yeah, it was a tricky question because it's more, as you said, for the Commission to answer. But thanks for trying. Let me try. Oh, we don't have any more questions, so maybe we will finish in advance of the schedule. Let's see if I can think about one. Yeah, we had some regarding future technology. How would you approach investigating future technology as AI or 5G or other metaverse as a framework? What you've done regarding the cloud sector, how could you apply for future technology? Maybe Adrian, for example, since you're the data scientist, how a competition authority can approach new technology to better understand it?
Yes, sure. I think that learning from the cloud inquiry, we've been able to identify the standard, the market standard, how it works, the open source technologies, the proprietary technologies, and what is working in the industry. And so I think we would do the same for new technologies. So try to learn from it, try to see what is working, what is not working, identifying the challenges that we are able to do, but the barrier, the potential barrier, and working with the scenarios like we did in the cloud computing inquiry. So identifying the different scenarios that can occur for a new entrant or for different companies. So I think we have a framework with this cloud inquiry that we can reuse in the future.
Thank you, Adrian. Does anyone want to add on what Adrian did say? So if not, I'm just checking our mailbox, but there's not any more questions. So we can thank all of you for this amazing second panel. I hope the audience did learn a lot of things. I found it very interesting. And we thank you, all of you who attended the World Conference. And maybe we can say see you soon. And goodbye all.